For this narration, I anchor the story in the best friend's brother. The weekend my best friend's older brother, freshly divorced and twice my age, came to the Lakehouse and changed everything. That night, the rain hammered the windows, and my breath stuttered as his message arrived. I should not want you, but I do. In that moment, I felt the safe life I had built tilt on its axis, a shelf of routines rocking as if a storm inside me had finally found a doorway. I am 37, a designer who sketches light into crowded rooms, who keeps a tidy calendar and a calmer mind, who loves my bustling city and the clean lines of my studio. I am also someone who believed she had learned to quiet the ache for what she could not have. My husband, Alex, had been steady and kind, a man who read my moods as if they were weather reports, and our friends, especially Lily, were the anchors I leaned on. Lily brought her brother because she believed the weekend away would help us all breathe again, and the thought of seeing him, with his stormy hair and the quiet humor in his eyes, made my breath hitch in a way I pretended not to notice. The plan sounded simple: a long drive from the city, a cabin by the lake, 2 days of lazy talks and board games, and meals that tasted better when shared. The setup of my life felt complete, even safe. The betrayal, when it came, did not arrive with loud thunder, but with the quiet, terrifying certainty that the life I had thought would last forever was not safe from change. I found his bag by the door, a slip of paper on the dresser, and a message I wished I had never seen. "I am leaving you for someone else," the note had said, and the words cut through me as surely as frost bites skin. Alex had not asked my permission to walk away. He had not chosen to tell me to my face. He left a fragile note like a paper boat in a storm. The room where I had slept for years felt suddenly too small, and I thought of the years we had spent collecting small compromises, the little lies we told to keep our picture from cracking. The ache was cruelly domestic, a memory of warm dinners and soft glances, now only a cold echo in a house that suddenly lacked a heartbeat. Then I did something I would not have believed possible. Lily apologized with her quiet forgiveness, but she whispered also of her brother's arrival and of the way the two of us had always avoided crossing the line I swore I would never cross. Yet the line began to glitter in the margins of the room, a thread of heat that leaded toward him when I turned toward the kitchen and found him there, his shirt sleeves rolled, his laughter a little rough from heartbreak and a lot of life. He had come to help Lily, to anchor her, to pretend not to notice the way the world shifted whenever we spoke. But the moment our hands brushed while reaching for the same dish towel, a spark leapt and refused to die. A dangerous, delicious fuse that lit too quickly and consumed my words before I could call them back. He spoke softly about the future, about slowly rebuilding, about a life that did not pretend that the past did not exist. He offered to listen when I could not sleep and to hold back when I needed space. And for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of what it might feel like to fall in a different direction, to let myself want something that was not planned on a calendar or approved by others. Rising action swirled like rain around the windows. The taste of fear sat on my tongue, metallic and cold. When I stood alone in the kitchen listening to the clock tick while the lake whispered through the trees outside, I thought of my own anger, the sting of betrayal, the way the truth can feel like a shove that knocks you off your own feet. And I thought of him, the older brother whose loneliness mirrored mine, whose ability to see through the noise felt like a shield and a dare at the same time. The more I learned about him, the more I learned about myself, how I had spent years learning to be careful, how I had learned to keep moving, even when my chest ached for something altogether more dangerous, more real. And then came the hint of an ally who could offer a different exit from the labyrinth. The house next door housed a tenant, a young woman named Mara, who rented a small studio above a gated garage and who seemed to carry a light that did not burn out, even in the damp corners of a rough week. Mara, with her cheerful questions and her stubborn independence, became a quiet confidant, a reminder that not every door needed to be opened with a heavy hand, that sometimes the best things arrive with a soft knock. And there was the sister of the betrayer, a surprising sister who had watched me from across rooms and understood the ache I wore when I thought no one was looking. She did not smile or rush in with advice. She offered space and a listening ear, and in a way that felt almost sacramental, she reminded me that love could arrive not as an explosion, but as a patient, undeniable choice. If this confession has you holding on the edge of your seat, if you are hoping to see whether breath and courage can rewrite a map that life had drawn in ash, then you are not alone. The weekend ended with a decision I did not want to make and a demand I did not know how to answer. I found myself drawn to him in slow, careful increments, our conversation stretching longer into the night, our silence becoming a language of its own. The stories we shared about grief and healing becoming the invisible rope that kept us tethered to each other, even as the world around us demanded we step away. The lake cooled my thoughts and cleared my vision in the mornings, and the taste of pine and coffee on the air was a reminder that some endings carry within them the seeds of a new beginning. He told me that he was not seeking to replace what I had lost, only to offer something else that might fit around the broken edges of my heart. He spoke with a tenderness that surprised me, a maturity that did not seek to own my life, but to walk beside it. I did not pretend that I could erase the past or pretend that the future would be easy. I did, however, allow myself to imagine a second chance, a slower path where trust could be earned again, not demanded but offered. A path that promised the possibility of something true without erasing the lessons I had learned. The days after the weekend, I found myself balancing two lives in the same breath, the careful, ordinary life that paid my bills and calmed my nerves, and the growing, secret warmth that grew when he was near. Mara, the tenant who had watched me with compassionate eyes, reminded me to breathe and to choose my own pace, not to rush truth. The sister of the betrayer kept showing up with little acts of care, like a bottle of water left on my doorstep or a note that simply said, "You matter," which I kept without knowing how to respond. And in the quiet moments I finally realized that I did not have to pretend I was fine in order to be strong. I could be both strong and hopeful. I could hold a line between loyalty to the life I had and the life I might dare to want. If I learned anything, it was that love could come back not as a thunderclap, but as a patient warmth that grows roots where fear once stood. It was a chance to heal, not just my heart, but the old wounds the betrayal had etched into me, and to learn to trust again, at a pace that felt right. The next decision would be mine, not the product of fear or duty. And when I finally spoke with him, the words came easy because they carried a truth I had earned, not a truth I had borrowed. He listened with the same careful respect that had threaded through our conversations, and I heard in his breath the promise that if we chose this path, we would walk it together, not as a hurry to replace what was lost, but as a careful, honest invitation to what could be found. And so I chose to begin again, not with a blaze, but with a spark that refused to go out. I made room for the ache. I made room for the hope. And I gave myself permission to want something more than safety, something that could become a home in a different way. The weekend did not erase the past, but it did soften its edges until the future glowed with a softer light. I learned that a second chance does not erase the scars, but carries them with care as proof of what we survived. If you crave